the discussion begins. Remember, we are talking about matters flood that has wreaked havoc in different parts of the country. Deaths have been recorded, and of course it's a discussion that we are tracking in, and of course to help us unpack this discussion is Dr. Michael Ayaibei, Head of Disaster and Risk Reduction at the Kenya Red Cross. And of course this is a discussion that is very close to the heart of many Kenyans. Remember, it could be, you know, your brother, your sister, yourself, or even your neighbor affected by this, drought. And at this very, pointing moment in time, it's very important to take precaution measures. And of course, even as we track this particular discussion, remember, a number of people, tens of thousands of people have been affected, and some even thousands displaced as a result of the ongoing floods, rendering many, businesses being halted, roads being impassable, and that is the state that we find ourselves in. And we are here just to take a look at what is happening across different parts of the country, and who is best to give us insight and give us the perspective of how things looks like right now than Dr. Michael Ayaibei, the Head of Disaster and Risk Reduction at Kenya Red Cross. Well, Doc, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you for having me, and it's a good moment to be with you today.
Right, the pleasure is all ours, Doc. Well, the recent days, actually a couple of days, we have been waking up to news of maybe deaths being recorded, people being displaced as a result of the ongoing drought. At this point, we can't talk about preventive, but at least we can talk about response, and this is where you come in. So just tell us, in just a brief, how is the situation on the ground, Doc?
Well, over the last couple of days, things have been deteriorating owing to the heavy rain. And as it had been forecasted by the meteorology department, talking of enhanced rains, the March, April, May rains, which are the main rains in the country, then we have experienced quite a high amount, which have been reaching even above 40 millimeters in 24 hours in some areas. And this being water that has accumulated over time even on the ground, then it means the soils are getting saturated, and that is why most of it will then end up in the runoff. And just the events of last weekend over the weekend, Sunday, Monday, then we saw, I think, one of the hardest, of the heaviest rains that we have experienced. And therefore, expanding even the number of counties that have been affected, reaching up to 27 at the moment. Started with the northeastern part, going to coast, and then we are now having the traditional parts of the western Kenya. We see Kisumu, Migori, Homa Bay now coming in heavily, because also there is some level of backflow from the lake, and then therefore affecting the population that is living near that area. So we are looking at life-saving activities at the moment, which are search and rescue. So far, the society has supported the rescue of at least 508 people. We've lost animals, we've lost lots of acreage in terms of the acreages of food, and therefore, even as we were moving from a drought situation and a little bit of recovery, then these gains are likely to be lost if these rains continue to an extent of destroying more acreages.
All right, Doc, kindly bring us up to speed with the latest statistics in terms of people affected, those displaced. You talk about the number of lives lost. So how does the number looks like at this particular moment? I understand we have been keeping track of the death toll at Mathare flooding, and as things stand right now, the number is rising to 13. So on your end, how does things looks like in terms of the statistics, the number of deaths recorded so far, and even those affected with this flood?
Also that the situation we are having is one that is evolving, and the data keep changing, and for sure the numbers given for Nairobi and countrywide remain the same, at least 13 reported in Nairobi. But then what we are looking at is how many households have been affected. At least 29,370 households. Remember, our households have an average of 5 people in it, so these have been affected in one way or another. At least 13,459 are displaced, meaning that they have no homes now, and are either at the evacuation camps, or they have been integrated amongst other families. We have had at least 27 casualties. These are people who have been injured in various ways, and have been at least assisted to get to hospital or have been treated at discharge. The number of camps has now risen to 55, and as long as these rains continue, then you see bigger number of people is going to be displaced. We anticipate to have more now that the dams are full, and the overfill over time. Then the Tana Delta is likely to burst bank, the Tana River itself, and therefore that then is likely to have more people that will be displaced. We also have cases of people that are missing, and Kenya Red Cross normally take action in tracking or tracing these people to ensure that we can be able to at least be able to know their fate, whether alive or dead or wherever they may have gone to. Remember, when one is also reported missing, does not mean that they are dead, because maybe they are just not able to reach their families, or the families are not able to reach that person. That number today is standing at 23. So these are the numbers, and these people are in need of food, they are in need of shelter, clean water, and health services.
All right. Doc will talk about the coordination between now your part as the Red Cross, and of course the help that comes from the county government, and of course the government itself. However, I want to draw your attention to two counties that are that has been flagged as the most affected. We have the Nairobi County and of course Machakos County. Well, here in Nairobi, the flood seems to be taking a toll in different parts of the country. Especially there is some areas that was mentioned to be adversely affected by the ongoing floods. So from your end, could you just pinpoint to us some of these areas, and if there is some even cautionary statement that he could issue to people that still hold on to whatever little hope that they have as far as this particular drought is concerned. So I want you to talk to us about these most affected areas, and how best can we take precaution measures, because remember the weatherman has already issued warning in regards to these ongoing floods, and it is said that for the next 24 hours the country will receive downpour to around 24 millimeters. So kindly brief us up into these most affected areas.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. a number of areas in Nairobi and the surrounding counties have faced heavy flooding. In Nairobi, quite a number of the informal settlements are along the river. We are talking about the back to Mukuru, starting from areas around Mukuru Nyayo, Ruben, Tarangombe, going up to Tarangombe on the other end. All these are aligned along the river bed. Also Madare, most of these being along the rivers, and then areas around Wiki. We've seen areas around Ruai, Joska, Kamulu, Kasarane, and then little parts of Kibera also because of the heavy flow from the Bengong area. That is for Nairobi, but also the surrounding. Remember, this is where now area around at the river. This is where lots of waters now start to accumulate, joining at the river. And areas around Mlolongo, Kitengela have been heavily flooded. Also on the northern part of Kajiado, we're talking about the area of Magadi. These are also been heavy levels of water flows, which have definitely caused flooding.
All right.
Now, the advice we would give really is two. One is that we have moved, I think, as a country, that we are having better focus that we are getting from the Met Department, and therefore, really, we advise people to be really looking at these advisories when they are given, like one which has been given today. So people need to be aware that in the next couple of days, at least 2-3 days, we will have heavy rains.
Okay.
And this is likely to continue the situation and make it even worse. So for those who have not moved to higher ground, and yet they have seen what levels these water have reached, these levels then are likely to still go even higher. So the best advice is they should be able to move at the moment to a little bit higher ground. Secondly is that there is efforts in terms of rescue, and therefore, you can be able to reach out to the Red Cross and call numbers like the 1199 to be able to get
All right. Okay. So that is the discussion that we are having with Dr. Michael Ayaibei, and of course, we'll be getting back to him just to get his closing remark. But